Hi everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil background information. Sorry. As you might remember, February I was ill with laryngitis for like the whole month. You'll still hear slight croaks and stuff in my voice now, so I have to do my recordings little bits at a time. So I do apologise for that, because it means they'll be a bit slow. But so I couldn't record anything last month, so there won't be videos this month, with the exception of one thing. Because of the thing with the culture video, I've just given up with them because it's just going to be chaos. Because, if you're using an AI to read things, it's never going to be able to read the context that's important. So, that's how it goes. Just made me laugh at YouTube, which is supposed to be the more stricter one. Once you put it behind the age restriction, which my thing is on an age restriction on Patreon, it's just crazy. It's like my third thing I've had with Patreon. It's all for different little bits, but enough of that, as always. So you're going to get a Demon and Angels profile. We're still doing the Demons of the Asgardia, so we're still on the Kings, but we'll be finishing them soon. You'll get a creature profile, and you'll get a character profile, and then instead of having a culture video, I'm going to do a story for you. Now that I will put up as a video this month, but yeah, that should be interesting. So yeah, let's get into it as usual with my Angels and Demons ones, and with most of my posts. You'll find the sources in the description box. I'll give you a quote from one of the stories where I'm using the character. I'll give you the information I have as background information for them. So, like, this will be the bits I've pulled out that specifically have influenced my development of this character or have affected the development of it. So, and then we'll get my character profile of them. So then, as characters in my Beyond the Veil universe. So you'll see where it should, give you a good idea of where I've used a lot of my own imagination to make them work for my universe rather than just, and where I've used the other bits to help me develop it. So hopefully that interests you. And we're doing Balaam, or Balaam, sorry. So let's get into it. It's probably the only one you can guarantee will give you a good audience, and if you want to face the other kings, then Balaam holds the most respect. I wouldn't be dealing with whom you're dealing without some reference from All the King's Kid. So a quote from To Be Weak and Miserable. The terrible king of hell, but often linked to the esoteric and ritual far more than others, with a curious air of mystery and yet respect. Perhaps the one most linked to the summoning is the demon Balaam. Different depictions will vary from a three-headed beast akin to Asmodeus, in being bull, human, and ram-headed, to a triple-headed goat with more akin to Bahamut, or Baphomet. I can never tell how to pronounce that one, than to the usual drawings. The most commonly written piece is held in the Dictionnaire Infernal, a huge, practically naked man riding a furious bear with a goat's head and a goshawk on his arm. Balaam is quite scary to look at. Okay, so a very powerful king. He's listed sometimes as a duke, but generally as a king in the Asgardia, and is the 51st demon in the Lesser Key of Solomon, and is thought to be a fallen angel, formerly the Order of Dominions. Like many of the kings and demons, he can be summoned to answer questions of the past, present, and future, and is the one most likely to give you correct answers. But it is said that he has the ability to turn men invisible, or teach men to be witty. He is thought to control 40 legions, has fiery eyes, and speaks in a hoarse voice, similar to my own, and a serpent's tail. Balaam is thought to be a servant to those born at the end of November, and it is said that he has his most powers during the winter months. He is thought to be defeated by the Kabbalistic angel Hagia. Don't know if I pronounced that right, and with my voice at the moment, certain things I cannot pronounce. He is often linked to the ability to manipulate and give cunning, but he is known to be very loyal to those that summon him and can reveal hidden treasures. In fact, there's thought to be a duality to his nature because of his respect to those who summon him, but he is perilous as he can teach the craft of necromancy and other darker rituals that are deemed unsavoury, but is thought through this to be a guardian to the underworld. Balaam is sometimes written Balaam, so Balaam, Balaam, or Balaam. The name Balaam means jaguar in the Mayan language, but it's hard to tell if his name comes from a variant of Baal, meaning Lord, as with many other demons, or if there is a bit of a mix-up with a magician from the Bible. In fact, you can see where the influence of the magician character has mixed in to make Balaam seem more linked to the occult than many of the other demon kings, and certainly would explain why many artists interpret him as more akin to the manner of Baphomet, and thus not necessarily as demonic as others. Balaam is deemed a demon of avarice and was a point of false worship, and there is question of his name coming from a Hebrew word for foreigner or avarice. Hence his link, and of course being attached to treasure, would work with this. He is said to be all the more evil because of his seeming benign powers, where he can teach the language of all things to others and reunite old friends, and it's said he's linked to exorcisms, as the infamous case of the possessed nuns of Loudon state that Sister Jean de Angers in 1634 named him as one of the 9 demons possessing them. Now, if you like me, you mostly hear the Baal and just assume it's another link to Baal. You feel he must join the general litany of demons where someone says, does this, does that, holds dominion over this, and sometimes you sit there and wonder, was there really this many demons, and don't a lot of them do the same thing? But that's why I do these. Some of these are very similar, but there are also a lot of differences. Balaam is very much a curious addition because he's often deemed more tangible because of the reference to a possession and because there's just a tad more about him than there are for some of the other kings. Of course, my favourite variation of Balaam is a certain gargoyle professor, who is, next to his best friend Caligo, my favourite characters from Iruma-Kun Goes to Demon School. I think everyone who's ever read or watched that adores Balaam. I like their version of him. He's adorable and he's a good teacher, but certainly my version is very different, and I will admit I've linked him more to the Baphomet types as well, hence I have Baphomet as his spawn, so I hope this will be interesting for you. When I do Baphomet, it should work out to be intriguing and fit into my universe more, so yeah, one of my weird bits, but so we'll go on to the profile now. So name is Balaam, position King of Hell, story featured in to be weak or miserable, role legal counsel, gender male mostly. Description: 2 forms. Most often he takes the body of a hairy man with a goat's head, riding atop a violent bear with a hawk to his arm, but other times he takes the form of a magician with a goat's head that can suddenly sprout a human head or even a bull's head when needed. He has a constant serpent tail and his fiery eyes. However, he has hairy ears. Realm Hell abilities: he can teach the craft of necromancy and can command the dead and summon the souls at the desire of his master. He can teach spells, teach invisibility and the language of living things, but can also teach humans to be more liked in the social sphere through gaining wit, and in the more modern era, he's one of the few to have comprehended social media video platforms and creates benign little bits that draw in the viewers and sometimes trick them to summon other demons or do things that lead to greater sins. Master Lucifer. Personality: he is loyal to whomever gives him a task and often counsels against going against the Almighty by giving evidence-based reasoning and is deemed very logical. However, he is also conniving and uses his seeming friendliness to summoners to steer them to darker paths and acts. However, he doesn't like things to be unresolved, and he protects his offspring and shows remorse, but understanding that many other demons do not. Relations: Lucifer. Inspired by Lucifer and seeking to have power over the more valued creation of the Almighty, Balaam followed Lucifer with the hope to have more command over these beings and over their bodies. He even wanted command over the angels of death and tried to have them obey him, only to find they had their own rules. Upon losing and arriving in hell, he remains more cautious, having learnt the errors of their ways, but his desire to dominate and own things prevents him from stepping away from Lucifer's command. Ha'asia. Their friend and companion in heaven, Balaam tricked Ha'asia to try and be gendered for a time, and through it the pair connected, and Balaam was the one to carry the offspring of their unpleasant union. But Ha'asia realized during the event it was wrong, so as they had disconnected, they had seemingly connected enough for it to cause something, and Balaam was beaten into the ground by Ha'asia, who then attempted to destroy him utterly during the battle. Balaam is scared of them because their rage against him is infinite and all thoughts of their friendship is lost, but Balaam mourns this as he believes Ha'asia was the only one who completely understood him once. Baphomet. The child born through Ha'asia, Baphomet, was the last of the Mastema born, and thus was born with damaged wings and the head of a goat. Where Balaam could, he helped give information and help to Baphomet, so that the child could aid humanity, but constantly Balaam's kindness towards their spawn would twist to try and corrupt his followers, and it is believed that Balaam was the one to reveal the cult of Baphomet and have them permanently viewed by humanity as demonic beings, and thus is thought to have been the one who also released the werewolf curse upon Baphomet's followers. Baphomet refuses to acknowledge him anymore, and thus Balaam is saddened, but he cannot help his desire to control. The Iron Wolves. Due to being believed to have produced the werewolf curse to attack the followers of Baphomet, Balaam is deemed the one responsible for creating the Iron Wolves in the first place. The Iron Wolves do not hold him in kind regard, and thus have an inbuilt bias against all those who perform necromancy and are immune to being manipulated by magic because of it, meaning they were perfect to join the Exorcists and the Mastema in becoming the Veil Agents. History. Balaam was once a dominion who drank in all the information he could and learnt the secret spells and manifestations of the Almighty's power with the intention to use it to aid man. However, as it would have been in a manner the Watchers would later use, Balaam was often closed out of certain knowledge. Kept away from the humans that were being held in high regard, Balaam grew jealous, but also a strong desire to have control over a being like that, and thus was drawn to Lucifer and their teachings. When they dared to draw in their best friend and then attempted to copulate with them, Ha'asia got away and then beat him up. No one had ever harmed Balaam before, but he preferred physical pain to the humiliation of being closed out. This action irked him to joining with Lucifer all the more, but reminded him of the fatality of life. And thus, when he approached the angels of death, he informed them of his knowledge of life and death and how they should be obedient to him. They refused and insisted their abilities were attached to that of the Almighty alone, and thus, realizing that only Lucifer was offering him true dominion over anything, he joined back with Lucifer's group for the final battle. He is a terrible fighter and takes out many enemies, ripping off many wings, and then even facing Ha'asia, but he tries to apologize to this friend and bring them to their side. This did not work, and he had his wings ripped off by his old friend, and thus was utterly weakened and pathetic. He was flung from heaven, and as he fell, his belly swelled, and it proved he was carrying a child to his friend. Just before he hit hell, he birthed Baphomet and was lost to them, landing into the pit. Tired and unable to pull himself up from the ground, he almost remained upon the ground as the others were urged upwards, but he managed it and clambered up the great rock to sit beside the other kings at Lucifer's heels. For being there, he was given his dominion and kingdom, and thus he began to work on the methods to control the dead and manipulate humans into trusting him to summon the dead for them. His link to this meant that necromancy would forever be deemed a dark art amongst the Abrahamic faith, but when summoned by others, he was often non-aggressive, willing, and yet always trying to manipulate. His existence took an interesting turn when he was able to connect with his child Baphomet, who was unique in having a following that saw the need to connect to the esoteric, but were not welcomed by the major faiths, despite beliefs in the Almighty. Balaam gives aid and advice to those in the group and helps develop them more, as Baphomet guides all to better ways to aid others and to keep the link between the veil and beyond it. Balaam enjoys the company and being seen as more of a benevolent force, but as time goes by, he notices that there is a tendency for them not to title him as a king, And as time goes by and he's called a demon and treated just like all the other summoned demons, Balaam decides to release the werewolf curse upon the followers and link the practice to the Knights Templar, and thus mix up so much of what was and what was not happening to help stoke the idea that these beings were all demonic worshippers and werewolves. With this, he not only created the Iron Wolves throughout the regions of Baphomet's Reach, but led to the innocent knights being drawn into a very unpleasant situation. The origin of the Friday the 13th bad luck. Balaam was then banished by Baphomet in response, banished with extreme prejudice so he was unable to ever come up again except when summoned. But there's always someone who wants to learn about the dark art of necromancy, to mean he can still torture everyone with the fear of animated corpses or trapped souls. So final comments, I still love Balaam from Iruma, but as you can see, a very completely different demon from the Asgothia one, and very different to my grumble putts here. So thanks for listening.